So much going on this week in the law enforcement sphere. We've got a lot of misinformation about the way illegal immigrants are detained or arrested, their children are separated. We've got lunatics like Peter Fonda making threats against the son of the President of the United States, sons and daughters of federal agents. We have White House officials being doxxed, ICE agents being doxxed, their personal information being released on social media. Here to make sense of it all is law enforcement expert, former federal and local law enforcement officer, my good friend Ben Mattis. Ben, thanks for being here this morning.
It's always good to see you, John. How are you?
Always great to see you, my friend. All right, let's jump right in. I want to get into the misinformation. Now, the president signed an executive order that basically reverses this policy of separating families at the border. But that's not going to be enough for the left. We both know that. They're going to be crying about something else in, I don't know, about 15 and a half minutes. So for the audience's edification, let's, you and I, two guys that work the street, talk about the process to arrest and detain somebody, whether they be an illegal going into federal custody or a armed robber going into local custody. Cut through, Ben, for me, because you explained it very, very nicely when we were chatting offline. Cut through the fiction and give us the facts.
So whether or not one person agrees with the fact that, what is or is not a crime exists, if it is a crime, someone has to get arrested for it. If they do get arrested for it, they're required to show up in court. The problem with the immigration situation right now is for years they were doing this catch and release policy. So when people were getting arrested, they were like basically saying, all right, show back up for your immigration hearing. And they were sending them out into the country and they weren't showing up. So when President Trump started his zero tolerance policy, the idea was, no, we're going to hold them and assure that they make at least the first appearance or two in front of an immigration judge, especially where asylum is claimed, because everyone, says I have asylum issues, which should be reserved for physical danger or religion, not economic prosperity and corruption, which is the big problem in Latin America right now.
Right. And Ben, asylum, and I thought Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen did a very good job at explaining that if you present yourself to a border checkpoint and seek asylum, you're not going to be removed from your kids, your family's not going to be separated. That happens when you try to come across the border at night in between checkpoints, i.e. illegally.
Yeah, which is extremely dangerous for the kids involved, not to mention the fact that they don't even have to go to a border checkpoint. If you're in another country, like a war-torn country, like when we were in Bosnia or what have you, you could literally walk into a U.S. embassy or consulate.
Right, you could do it in your country, right?
Yeah. So, there are lines in your hometown. You don't have to make a 2,000-mile strife-ridden journey in precarious situations where, your kid is at risk, which ends in, if it's in the Texas side, crossing a rapid river with your children
through through cartel country.
So I mean, when you think about the issues being conflated, and that's what we're really looking at here right now, if you were caught out on A1A drunken driving and you had your kid in your next seat, right, that you would have to be arrested.
Sure.
And that kid is not going into the cell with you, because guess what? Then that kid is exposed to the dangers of a correctional environment.
That's right.
So last night, President Trump signs an executive order to keep the families together, which is going to entail building. We have to now figure out a way to create family detention centers. Yeah. Now they have to create a jail where people are all separate so that the kids can't get victimized, which is just ludicrous when you consider it was done to basically appease a media firestorm created by people who wouldn't care less. And how we know about this is Michelle Brané, who's the director of Migrant Rights and Justice Program for the Women's Refugee Commission, was quoted in NPR yesterday saying, this executive order effectively creates family prisons, which we already know is a threat to the well-being of the child.
Stories like this are really important, and I want to analyze them for you, cut through all of the hysteria, all the emotion. Help me do that by subscribing to our premium service at www.rebel.media/shows. Go to the App Store, download the Rebel app. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.